Hello, let's talk about how engineers are innovating for the future. So first of all, welcome from me. I'm Paula. I'm a civil engineer that works for Sir Robert McAlpine, and I've worked on lots of different things throughout my life, and I've seen lots of different changes, and I've made innovations, and I've seen many engineers and other people in the industry make innovations as well. So what we're going to talk about today, because it's British Science Week and the topic for that is innovating for the future, that's what we're going to talk about, and we're going to cover it by thinking about that engineers are the ultimate problem solvers and innovators, and we'll think about how engineers will shape the future for us all. So just first of all to mention that there's lots and lots of different types of engineers, everything from aerospace, going into space, flights, planes, to software, everything to do with computers, electrical engineers, everything to do with electricity from getting it to you, to all of the equipment that's used. Agricultural engineers deal with food and food supply and making the most out of what we've got in terms of land and water. Mechanical engineers make things like equipment and tools. Environmental engineers obviously look at the impact of everything on the environment. Biomedical deal with not just engineering but the body as well, so they could look at limbs for people that have lost say limbs and they want an artificial limb. And civil engineers, that's what I do. Civil engineers look at infrastructure. So infrastructure is pretty much everything. It's the buildings that people sit in, it's the roads, the trains, the electricity supply, water treatment, lots and lots of different things, and there's many types of engineers. So here's some engineers that work for Sir Robert McAlpine, a selection. So Megan's an engineer that works on construction sites, so she builds things. Richard's a design manager, so design is where people put things onto paper to communicate how it can be constructed, and Richard works on construction sites as well. Marie is a package manager, which means that on the sites that she looks after whole areas of the site, and Mimi is a civil engineer that looks after materials, so she helps test concrete and improve concrete mixes and make sure the quality's okay. So it doesn't matter what type of engineer that you are, all engineers are problem solvers. We love solving problems. So it doesn't matter whether people are in the design, whether they're putting things down on paper, whether they're building it or constructing it, whether it be large or small, whether it be buried underground or it might be very tall, or maintaining it, looking after something that already exists. There's problems to be solved throughout all different types of engineering and all different stages of any project. So engineers have always been innovators, from the first invention of the wheel to concrete, and concrete technology is a topic in itself. Mimi helps with that sort of thing, and concrete technology has come on in leaps and bounds over the years, and it's now much stronger, and we know much more about it and the different types of mixes and additives we can put in it. Engineers built the railways, and obviously that's a very old train that's been shown on the picture there, and again trains have come along, and there's all types of different trains that work on different types of energy, that work on different types of tracks, that go at different speeds, and constantly innovating. So from the first to the last, there's a really old TV that engineers created, and obviously TVs now are much flatter and much thinner. Then we've got LED TVs that use electricity less than the old-fashioned types, and they're constantly improving the quality that you see. Then of course there's robotics and the future of engineering, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. So looking at some current innovations, it sort of shows you the different types of engineering there is. So 3D printing's come on massively, and people are even 3D printing bicycles and houses. Train tracks that actually float on water, who would have thought it? Superconductive materials, you might not know much about it, but they're used in all sorts of different things, engines and things like that. Floating wind farms for renewable energies, movable roofs, Smart rings for payments. Obviously people use their phones, but how about a ring? Aqua refining, recycling lead, and there's lots of recycling needed. Solar balloons for gathering energy, and all sorts of different things. Everything from suitcases, there's a solar mat that people can travel around. There's a different type of renewable energy for offshore wind by taking the wind from kites. So there's all sorts of different things. Engineers basically affect everything that you use now and also everything that you're going to use in the future. And the current innovations might not be on the high street yet, but they certainly will be coming and they'll make life better for everyone. So just think of different types of sort of engineers. This is a structural engineer that's using paper folding, origami, to actually look at different ways of constructing things. And who would have thought that paper folding could have actually have made bridges that you could put on the back of a truck and then take different places, and then you can deploy the bridge when you actually get there. So engineers are innovative, meaning that they create innovations out of things maybe that already exist, but thinking about it in a different way, because the problem solvers and the creative. So let's have a think about the future. So one possible future timeline is in this century. We obviously have climate change. You'll have heard of climate change and the climate emergency. And as a result of that, we obviously have a lot of things to do with weather that's going to change, and we have to deal with that. We also have dwindling resources because we're using things up that can't be replaced. There's lots of people on the planet, and obviously technology is moving greatly. So these people here have suggested that from 2100, so 2100, we will maybe be looking at space and colonising space. Maybe, who knows? But no doubt about it, whatever the future holds, engineers will be right bang in the middle of creating the solutions. So one of the things that's definitely on people's agenda is sustainability. So we need to be more sustainable. We need to think about things in a different way, because we've been using things far too fast and loose. We've been using resources that are not going to be replenished, like oil and gas, and we've been burning things and actually putting too much CO2 in the atmosphere, which has meant that the climate is warming up. The whole planet is warming up. So engineers are at the heart of innovations, and this is some civil engineering innovations, which obviously civil engineering is close to my heart. So some of the things that people are looking at to improve sustainability is plastic roads. Yes, roads made out of plastic. So instead of the black surfacing that you see now that's made out of oil, make them out of plastic, something that's a waste product. And we can melt it down and mix it with other things and actually make a really robust surface for you to drive on. Green roof systems. So green roof systems are basically putting vegetation, whether it be different grasses, it could be vegetables, it could be anything, onto roofs. Obviously, that's not something that we traditionally did, because when you have any vegetation, you've got roots which you don't want to go into the house, and you've obviously got watering systems. So things have come along leaps and bounds to actually help develop layers, so you can actually have protective layers between the building itself and all of that green roof. Eco floating homes. So this is particularly interesting and good for areas in, say, city centres where they're overcrowded and there's maybe a river or a lake or a coastline close by, and so actually put floating homes onto the water. And obviously we want them to be eco, so we want them to be eco-friendly, so we'd have things like solar panels on the roof or maybe a wind turbine. And we'd have to obviously think about the wastewater and things like that. So we need to make sure that things that we build are sustainable. Vertical farming. So vertical is obviously up and down. So that's making the best use out of land by going up and farming up rather than thinking about just putting everything on the ground. Rainwater harvesting is where people use the rain from the roof, gather it and actually use it for things like flushing toilets, watering plants, maybe even washing the pets, that sort of thing. It's unlikely that you'd use it without it being treated for drinking water, but there's lots of things that you use water for in the house that doesn't need to have that super clean water that takes up all of that energy to clean and get it to us via the tap. So then think about the digital revolution. So that's everything to do with technology and electronics. So we talk about things called disruptive engineering and disruptive technologies. So a disruptive technology is something that will basically change the way that we work and we think. It really disrupts what we currently do. And there's a few different things that's been sort of considered to be a trend and it's going to be utilised more, which are listed there. So the first one is called digital twins. So I'll explain what that is. It's sometimes also called building information models and other titles, but basically it's making real life things into a computer model and having this twin, something that absolutely matches it. And the advantage of that is that the computer can do a lot of the thinking for you. You can have a lot of information in there, so you don't have duplicates. You have everything in this master model that contains all the information about the building. You can use it for planning, for costing, for finding things out of certain materials. And if you plan things better, you can maybe use less materials because you're working efficiently. Artificial intelligence is where basically computers mimic intelligence because they learn from the parameters that you put in, and then they improve constantly. So artificial intelligence can be used for all sorts of things, and one of them things is generative design. So again, looking at efficiency and looking at sustainability and trying to make it so we make the best use of our resources that we've got. Generative design could look at thousands of different options and ways of building things and thicknesses of beams and lengths of beams and sizes of rooms and come up with the most optimum design in a way using computers that the human brain just couldn't do in such a short length of time. Robotics is obviously using robots for all sorts of things, and robots can be used in places where we can't go. They can be used for lifting heavy things. They can be used for also doing the other end of the scale, really delicate or small things. So robots can be used for lots and lots of different applications. They could be used for helping with the farming and other things like that. 3D printing is being used more and more and more. It's really come on. You can make very intricate and complicated things, but you can also even use 3D printing, put concrete in it instead of plastic or other materials, and you can actually 3D print a whole house, believe it or not. So I think I've shown you that engineering is totally STEMtastic, regardless of what discipline you're in, regardless of whether you're looking at innovations that's going on now or in the future, regardless of whether you're in design, in construction or in maintenance, it's all just totally STEMtastic. So it is for the future. Engineering's interesting, it's creative, you solve problems, there's a wide variety of different types of jobs and different sectors. It's innovative and it's needed for the future. So why not think about becoming an engineer later in life? So if you want to ask me any questions about this session or any of the other sessions that I've had this week, come along on Friday the 12th of May at 2:45. Book first please, and you can ask me, Engineer Paula, pretty much anything you want about engineering, the future, careers, and I look forward to speaking to you. So thank you for listening. Bye.